Bienvenidos and welcome a Cositas Mami Never Told Me, a podcast that dives deep into the Latin cultural norms that have long haunted the feminine genre. Montate and buckle up porque it's going to be a roller coaster ride. ¡Nos fuimos!
Yes.
Straight like that. Ay, Dios mío. I love
Anyway, today we're going to be talking about what I found to be interesting topic, because I guess it has so many things that you could call it. To me, it's just some racist ass bullshit. But of course, like everything, like Latina, Latine, Latinx, everything is given a terminology that is now acceptable by various parties, because we live in my opinion, day and time where everyone has to feel accepted and like who they are is okay, and everyone gets a trophy and a ribbon, and I have my own personal opinions about that, but whatever. Yes, is she burning?
Let's cleanse the space. Let's cleanse the space for this racist shit.
Ready? So before we get on this podcast, Dee's like, "Oh, I got a prop for your ass today," and I said, "Oh," I was like, "What is it?" She's like, "No, I'm not gonna tell you." So if you guys aren't watching, Dee just busted out the biggest sage roll I think I've ever seen. Actually,
well, there was a bigger one.
It's a good size.
There was a bigger one, and I was like, let me get the small one, which is something I would never say. Let me get this. Let me get the small one, right? So we have sage.
You better burn that sage. And I'm so thankful Lola's not barking at the sage. Because she's definitely like, what is going on? And what's that smell? But thank you for cleansing the space for this very interesting topic that we are going to call code switching. So Cositas Mami Never Told Me, for those of you who are just tuning in, is a podcast that was born out of various conversations that Diana and I have had with each other, or we just kind of realized these are conversations that we've had with people, and that especially women, brown women, Latina women, are really kind of like what's happening in your head is happening in a lot of other people's heads. It's just these conversations aren't being had. And then it brought us to think about the fact that would it have made a difference if our moms, of course, all these topics vary, but would it have made a difference if our moms would have had these conversations with us? Like, is there any way that you can properly prepare for these things in life that seem to take over, in whatever relationships, whether it's sexual relationships, friendships, workplace-ships, whatever. So we think that, and I think that, and I had spoken to, I know I have a good friend, Ileana, who's a senior person at LinkedIn. I have a bunch of other girlfriends who, before we really started to decide on the topics that we would discuss, especially season 1 of this podcast, it's crazy how all the people that I reached out to, Nancy, Ileana, Eva, like were the same. And all I said was, as a Latina, if you could think about things that you wish your mom would have spoken to you about, and it's not like we love our moms, we're not blaming moms, whatever. It's more like, if I could have been prepared for this, if I could have just known that this existed, if I could have known that I need to work harder, be smarter, be faster, be more professional, be more polished, then at least I wouldn't have been so blindsided when I walked into my first workplace meeting and felt out of place, for example. So today we're going to talk about code switching, and I wanted to start with what code switching is. It's absolutely one of these words that it's like, what is that? Now there's so many different types of words, as I mentioned, Latine, Latinx, whatever. I am not well versed in them. I will never lie and tell you I am. But what is code switching? So code switching in its birth started as basically saying, it was based on language and being able, kind of what we call Spanglish. You know what I'm saying? Like where you're in a place and you speak in English and then it comes out in Spanish, So that would be code switching. But of course, as 2022, as we go into 2023, and as people become more aware, as people become more intentional, as people become more, I don't want to use the word sensitive, but more, let's just say aware of their surroundings and who's around and what other people are feeling, code switching has really evolved into being you not being able to be yourself in an environment. So, code switching is the ways in which a member of an underrepresented group consciously or unconsciously adjusts their language, syntax, grammatical structure, behavior, and appearance to fit into the dominant culture. Which, if we're just calling it what it is, call it 100. It's basically, for me as a brown woman, anything I have to do to assimilate as a well-spoken white woman in a professional space.
Or in any type of space.
Yes, exactly.
Because it could also be for anybody that may be like from down south, or I'm not gonna say African American because I've heard white people talk about I'm finna to go. I'm finna, right? I'm finna be I'm finna get to school on time when that really means I'm going to get to school on time, right? So just alternating between two languages, alternating between two dialects, alternating between two forms of conversations, just to be able to fit in, right? So one of the things that sticks out to me with this is that for most of my life, I've worked in corporate America, and usually I didn't have call ID, right? Because, I'm in my 40s. So back in the day, it wasn't no call ID. So you would pick up the phone and be like, let's make up a company, ABC. All right, ABC Corporation. Hello, this is ABC Corporation, and this is Diana. How can I help you? So then on the other end is my girlfriend talking about, bitch. And then I got to switch it up like, hey, girl, what's up? You know what I'm saying? But I can't pick up the phone like, hey, girl, what's up? This is Diana. Like, I can't pick up the phone. So that was, code switching. Or there was a time where there was like 15 of us in a corner side office, and, cubicles and everything. And out of the 15, 12 of us were African American, Black, and Spanish. So when I got over there, I was like, does the company know that this many of us is in this corner? That was my first question. But the second question was like, okay, like everybody was talking, but it was funny to see how when someone that was Caucasian or someone that was upper management came into the space, everyone automatically it was like a pop. Yeah. And if the front person, the cubicle and the front person, she would get up to give like everybody the heads up. It was so crazy. It's the equivalent of the get off my head, I'm gonna charge you rent. It is the equivalent of when you in the hood and they go boop boop. The equivalent. Exactly the equivalent. But and I know that you've probably worked in these spaces too. And not to say that corporate America, which is mainly Caucasian, I love my Caucasian people, but the energy is different. The energy is different. Like I worked in a mayor's office where it was basically Puerto Rican and Black. It was a ratchet experience, to say nonetheless. There was some ratchet aspects. There was a lot of people that were trying to act professional, but they weren't really professional. They were trying to act professional, but the energy was palpable. Like you could feel it. You came in like it was, and it's different. It's buttoned. When you go into corporate America, usually it's buttoned up. There's a certain type of way that you got to talk. There's a certain type of way you got to wear your hair. And I know the last 5 years of my job, I always bend the rules a little bit, and people are always trying to see what I'm wearing or what, because Diana don't wear corporate clothes. I'm like, well, I do. It's business casual. It's not, I'm not wearing a suit. Like, I'm not wearing slacks and a blazer. Like, that's not me. You know what I'm saying? If I could wear a flowy caftan, I'm going to wear a flowy caftan with knee boots and a skirt. Like, leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? But, with this all-inclusive diversity situation, do they really want the diversity?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
right. So just talking about code switching in a professional environment. So for me, I started my first job was at Sean John, which is a black owned company. So it was, I didn't really deal with not being able to be my authentic self at all. It was
Mm-hmm.
very much like, um, everyone was brown, Puff is brown, like everyone is there to, it was a different time as well, but everyone was there to like help the black man win. Like we just all happy that we could work for a company where we're representing a brown black person, and everybody's hungry. Everybody came out of college. Everybody's like hustling, figuring it out. It's like I call it boot camp. But I quickly learned, even there, because I used to oversee all the marketing, when I had to talk to whether it was like Elle magazine or Vogue or whatever, it was like, I mean, for me, I think it's natural just from, I don't know, college and traveling abroad at a young age and living in London when I was younger. But I knew, and I went into like autopilot when I had to meet with a salesperson at a publication, where you just like turn it off. You know, we're
Mm-hmm.
not like, yo, 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 what. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, hi, how are you, Katie? Like, great, absolutely. We're looking for a right-hand page, first 21 pages. Absolutely, September issue, blah, blah, blah. We know it's a huge deal. It's a new campaign. You know, like, even the way you're describing the campaign, like if I'm talking to Puff and I'm going over the three concepts that we're pitching for the campaign, I'm like, so this is giving you sexy, this is giving you fly, like you're more in your authentic self, your tone, your voice, your mannerisms, your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I professionally, and I've dealt, and I'll share very candidly the things that have been said to me. I had a lawsuit with one of my previous employers. Like, it's real, where even at times when you do code switch and you don't live in your authentic voice, simply the way you appear. So when I left Sean John, and I would first of all, when I left, I was poached essentially. I didn't even have to interview at this company. I was like ready to go. I was tired. I had been there 4.5 years or whatever. It was a very white company. They own various brands, and I was coming in to oversee like 12 of them. But so this lady is like on me, on me, on me. And I'm like, oh, she got my name through Teen Vogue at the time, the salesperson. I say all this to say she's white. The whole team is white. I meet her. She loves me, whatever. Probably 1 or 2 months in, it became this very much like, this is just not the vibe. And mind you, I'm literally not even being myself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
absolutely very much like, hi, yes, absolutely. The tone is different. The words you use are different.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that at the time, it comes from a space of knowing that to be urban is unprofessional.
Mm.
And to me, the biggest thing is it has nothing to do with intelligence, intellect, knowledge, work ethic. It's almost like, from what I've experienced and from what I know people have experienced, and it's something to be said about first impressions. So the minute you walk in and you have hoop earrings on and a red lip, or a top knot bun, like, or nameplate, or like all these things that are categorized as urban, is like, it's automatically seen as dumb,
Mm-hmm.
as, you don't, this person can't possibly know. Like, I have had throughout my career people tell me, our customer doesn't wear hoop earrings like Roxy. I have had closing a deal worth $10 million, and the man shakes my hand and says, I'm really surprised at how well versed you were throughout this deal. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
like very much. And then for me, what people don't know is that when I left Sean John and I went to this other company, and I left that company, and then I really started like interviewing at a more, I guess in fashion it would be corporate, like when I went to Nike and Kohan and all these other companies that are more, I guess, established, because Sean John is a real company. Like, people can think
Mm-hmm.
whatever they want, but this is
Mm-hmm.
like a real company. Puff just became a billionaire this year, official, with all his ventures. But nonetheless, as I started to see how I was being seen myself, I would then go to interviews with my hair in a slick back bun, never curly, with a muted lip. I wouldn't even have my nails painted. I would wear a stud. I put on fake glasses. Like, I literally had this like MO that automatically started. I kind of crafted because I knew I had to code switch to even just get in the door after the interview. It was like, it didn't matter what my resume said. It didn't matter what my interview was. And then to top it off, in the interview, I'm very much thinking about how I'm speaking and what I'm saying. It's fucking exhausting. Exhausting.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that when we decided to talk about this topic, it was so many things that came up, and it was like code switching is when you essentially hide yourself, when you change who you are, when you're not your authentic voice, when who you are naturally comes off is perceived as unprofessional, unpalatable, which is essentially when you can't even stand like the taste of a person just based off of how they look or how they speak. And speaking to my girlfriend who is at LinkedIn, who has an amazing newsletter that she's come out with, which I will link in the comments. It happens across the board. But for me, this code switching thing, the word is new, because for me, I always thought it was just some racist ass shit that we had to deal with. Now I feel like it's become more acceptable to come as you are. Like, it's almost like it's cool. So the difference is, like, 20 years ago when I was at Puff, working with Puff was cool. I was always seen as cool by whomever, white, black, whatever. That doesn't mean you were seen as intelligent. It's different. Right. Like, you could have been closing 100 deals for him, and that's so cool. It's so cool. It's so cool. But it didn't mean intelligence. Now, and at the time, and as it continues, it's gotten worse. It's very much like culture vulturing, as we know. Like, a lot of times,
that's been happening.
Urban is, or brown people or Latino people are cool. They're just cool. They're cool and cool enough to like take from. So Carrie on Sex and the City had a nameplate, and it was like the whole to do. And I'm like, bitch, we've been wearing nameplates. Years. The Kardashians came out. They were wearing the braids, and the braids. Like assimilation. Braids is something that ethnically goes back to Africa, to Caribbean, to textured hair. It actually has to do with the fact that the texture of the hair, for the longevity of the hair, the braid, you get what I'm saying? There's so much history behind it, but it's like cool enough for me to take, but not cool enough for you to come with me, if that makes sense.
Right.
I kind of like what your vibe is, and I want to take pieces of the vibe, but I don't want to bring you with me. Now I feel like, and I am hopeful for Sophie's generation, because I feel like what's happened is it's become more mainstream, and it's like it's okay to wear your curls. It's so much work to be done. I also think it has something to do as personal growth, professional growth. But it's more acceptable now to wear your gold, to wear your hoops, to wear your red lip, to have a time and place to be like, you know what, actually what's missing from this is that there's no cool factor. Like, especially in divisions of marketing, of branding, of social media, of now that this digital space has taken on so many levels, now even white corporate America is looking for that cool, you know, which was for so long unacceptable, and what forced you to code switch and not be who you are.
Well, reasons that a lot of people code switch, I want to say that reasons that I code switch is to say something in secret. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm going to keep it real. If I want to talk about you, I'll talk about you in English. But sometimes If you want to say some shit to your counterpart, to your friend or whatever, you gonna say it in Spanish.
They're like,
Right?
qué bruta esto, ¿verdad?
And, I mean, and it conveys emotions. It's just a lot of different. I mean, code switch. I mean, it's so crazy. There's a name for it now because I feel like I've been doing it for so long, and
Literally, what would we have called it? Like when you turn it on, or honestly, when you just become, you got your white voice on. Oh,
or your corporate voice. They call it corporate. You got your corporate voice on.
Your corporate white voice on.
When in reality, I think it's part of my identification, right? Like I identify with it. Like, sometimes I even use it to clarify myself. I use it for clarification. Like if you don't understand something, okay, let me say it this way. You probably know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like I could be talking Spanish to somebody that's Puerto Rican and they don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I gotta say it in English. You know what I'm saying? I just code switch real quick so like you said, the Spanglish. But
it's funny. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's like what you just said. Phil is always like, if we go somewhere and he sees someone in Spanish, he'd be like, "Yo, do the bada bada." So it's not only professional; it's like in a personal space as well because he feels like now in California, like my car's getting fixed, and I found this Mexican guy who's going to do it. And then as we're walking there, I literally look at Phil, was like, "Don't say nothing.
Right, I got this.
Don't speak." You know what I'm saying? I go up to it, and Phil in his mind is thinking, well, I'm a man. I don't want them to take advantage of you, blah, blah. I'm like, nah, my man, I got this. Don't speak. Also, I'm also a super alpha female. So it's like, I can negotiate my own deals. Like, I know when someone's trying to rip me off. So it's very different. It's like, I get it. Like, you know how women say, I go to a car dealer and nobody listens to me. But nah, I'll be like, my man, like, what we doing? What can you do for me? That's not going to work. Blah, blah, blah. But it literally, I go to the guy and immediately I speak to him in Spanish because when we walk in, mind you, it's like, like a bunch of cars. Some are beat up, some are fixed or whatever. And the energy is like, there's 3 oily ass men, like, who fix cars. And they're looking like, what these people want? So then I knew immediately to code switch the other way and to not be so, like, I'd be like, and then it's like I spoke to him in Spanish. I was like,
and it's a form of comfort.
Exactly.
Automatically. There's a form of the same shit happened to me when I went to San Francisco. So as soon as I see somebody that's struggling, and it didn't even matter, San Francisco, Puerto Rico, they automatically assume that I'm African American, right? So they like are trying their hardest to speak in English so like that we can communicate. And as soon as I talk in Spanish, they're like, there's this sense of relief that just comes all over their face, their body, and they're just like, and not only that, like, especially if you be like, no, tú eres boricua, and then they say, yeah, where are you from? It's the same shit. Like if somebody's Asian and they say, well, I'm Japanese, where are you from? Japan. Oh, what rural part of Japan are you from? So that automatically becomes like
similarity. Exactly.
Right, that like instant similarity and that comfort.
Yeah.
Right. So then it's just like
almost pretty sad for like, and I hate to say because white is not a culture, but it's pretty sad when you don't identify with being Italian or being Greek or being like something besides white because it's like, oh, what do you connect with? It's. I mean, I guess in a sense, it could be like when I say I'm from New York or whatever. People are like, oh, I'm from New York. And then that actually happened this weekend. It's like, oh, yeah, my sister lives in New York. She lives in Westchester. I'm like, that's not the city. But
right.
She might as well be in Albany. But like, no, I'm from the city, actually. And I'm actually from Hartford. Moved to New York 22 years ago. But after 7 years, you're justified to say that you're from New York. But it works the same. But like you said, it does. So it's like once you are able to be your authentic self, it gives that comfort in conversation. It's like an automatic trust situation in the comfort. But the sad part is that 90% of the time in a professional environment, you can't be your necessary authentic voice. Like for me at Sean John, I felt that, and that being my first exposure into like my career, it was almost like I was so blindsided. It's like I knew that there's also like appropriate and inappropriate. That's not what we're saying. Like code switching is not that. Code switching is not like yo. No. Code switching is a word like that would be so fire. You're in a meeting and you're like, that would be so fire. And for someone to be like, what's fire? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, that's code switching. It's not like, yo, 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 baby, baby. That would be so fucking dope. That's inappropriate. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
let's be clear on what this conversation is. It is the, what is it? The inability to be oneself based on your environment, professionally, personally, or whatever.
Well, that sort of kind of happened to me. I want to say about 2 weeks ago when we were having some in-office situations, and they had like all the executives there, and they wanted to make sure that, you know, all the people that were below them were doing okay because everybody's working from home, whatever. And I happen to be like really cool with a lot of the executives, you know, that don't manage me.
Surprise, surprise.
That don't manage me, right? So then the people that manage me, they get
Diana
like,
is actually an excellent code switcher. She's one of the few people, I'm going to let her continue, who is able to code switch, but it's like sprinkled with flavor. It's something very unique to watch.
you are so crazy. Thank you. So one of the executives told both my managers, it was like, you know, Diana's so hilarious. You guys must have a great time with her. Like the stuff she comes up with, the stuff that she just comes out of her mouth. And then they're both looking at each other like, you know, because they're both white women, and I love, you know, I think they're cool as hell. But they both look at each other like, no, we don't know that, Diana. And I was looking at the other one like,
they're like, yo, my man, that's not for public.
They don't know. And they're like, but why? She's like, you should bring your whole self to work. I was like, shh.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So then I see other people that sort of kind of like seesaw between the two worlds. And yeah, they're very successful at it, but they're at the top of the chain, right? So they can throw out a little slang word here and there. So then their counterparts are like, oh, that's cool. I can use, what does that mean? Oh, maybe I can use it with my kids, right? Whereas if I come in there and say, oh, that's fire, or, you know, that's, you know, whatever, then they're like, fire in what respect? Because fire usually means not good unless you're warming yourself, then it is good. But what type of fire are we talking about, right? So, you know, it was just funny to me how, you know, I had to sort of kind of just explain to my manager, well, something comes, it just is in my mind, it just like clicks. Okay, if this person is of this stature, this is the way that I have to carry myself. Now, I have people that are the same as my manager's level, and they call me trouble, or they'll say, uh-oh, here. You know what I'm saying? But I know that I don't report to them. So, you know, so, but it's a, you know, like I said, it's a catch-22. Like where do you,
it's a, for you, it's become a refined skill, but like, it's almost like, not to be too deep, but it's almost sad that you even have to put yourself in the mindset where you can't necessarily be your full authentic self, which, by the way, your full authentic self is intelligent, strategic, like all these things, you know, like I'm always curious to see like what would a professional space look like if everyone showed
could be
up
themselves.
as their true authentic.
Oh my God.
How honestly beautiful and dope. That's really how you diversify a professional space.
And I mean, we don't want, I mean, you know, bring your authentic self, but if you do cocaine at home, don't do it at work. We don't mean.
Like, there's authentic self, and then there's literally inappropriateness. Okay?
Right. So if you're going, like, we've seen people where they,
whoever you least expected is the one out here doing cocaine.
Absolutely. And that's why I bring it up, because I know what a person that does cocaine look like. Trust me.
He look like everybody on the street.
They ain't corporate America for sure. But yo, I've gone up to people, like when I was working in the office, I would go up to people and be like, yo, those are stripper shoes, B. You should not. And if you bend over, you should do a bend over test at home, B. You're the reason why we got the email talking about dress code. Like, let's talk about it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I don't even know how I got there, but
yeah.
No, but like, you know,
how dope would it be?
How dope would it be? You know, you would have people. you would have people. I will tell you right now for sure. You would have some Dungeon and Dragon people. Okay, you would have some gamers. You would have people wearing their tattoos. Because I know people that wear long sleeves even in the summer, and I'm curious. You know what I'm saying? I'll put on my Oprah hat and I start asking questions like, "Why you always got your shirt all buttoned up? It's summer out here." And then they start rolling up. And there's a couple people that wear their tattoos at work now, but you know they roll up their sleeve and they're like, "Oh, I can't really wear." I'm like, "Oh, you got tattoo? Oh, you just became a lot cooler." But you know what I'm saying? So even I think even with there's people that I know that would probably be going in there with some fairy dust and that crazy as hell because there's so many witches. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All races too, especially white ones. They always want. There's all these Salem witches.
They all among us.
But imagine if you were able to just be yourself, the creativity that you know what I'm saying.
That's
so
what
I
I'm
just think
saying. Like there. First of all, to me, there is what do they always say? Two heads are better than one. Period. But like, can you imagine two heads that come together with all of your cultural experiences, everything that you really
everything
know?
flowing, energy and everything.
Because let's really talk about it. The dopest shit comes from the hood. You know why?
Absolutely.
No
Absolutely.
BS. The dopest shit comes from the hood because what? Lack of access makes you hustle. It makes you create. It forces
The ingenuity that comes out. Yeah.
what I'm saying. It's a given. It's like I've seen access to excess where people end up dead. And then when you don't have access, period, you end up resourceful. There is no coincidence that a lot of these athletes, football, basketball, whatever, come from crazy hustle. Not all of them. A lot of people in tech, a lot of people who have ingenuities come because you have no other choice but to figure it out. You see it all the time in the hood. You need a milk crate and a ball. You got a court. That's why things like golf and tennis, which by the way we're also starting to dominate, but has taken lacrosse. Because guess what? It's like those things are skiing is more expensive. You need equipment. You need access to these places. You need all these things. So it doesn't require, not to take away from anyone who's talented in those areas and skilled in every race, in every ethnicity. But we don't, in general, and this is not a stereotype, have access to these things, which in turn don't let us experience them, perfect them, or thrive in them. So what do? You fucking do with what you have. So how much creativity am I bringing to the workplace, and how much honesty and how much rawness am I bringing to the workplace if since I was little I'm out here figuring it out?
Right.
It's just a very different mindset. And that's when we were talking about this subject, I was like, how dope would it really be if you genuinely were allowed to bring yourself to the table? My girlfriend is a VP at Google. And she was telling me that she got on a call and she has a team of about 65 people and she's wanted to shake it up a little bit, whatever. So this is Google. I don't know if you're familiar with Google, anyone listening, but to get into Google is like getting into Harvard. The process to get in the vetting is intense. So she has a call and she wanted to kind of lighten up the mood, and to start the call, she asked people like, all right, so what are you listening to right now, music wise? What is that song that is like firing you up or like putting you in the zone? And literally she told me she heard crickets. And she was like, what is happening? And then finally someone on the call was like, we weren't prepared for this question. And her, as an amazing leader, is like, well, this is what's wrong. Like people are, whether they're code switching or they're not, it's like people are a lot of times acting out of fear in professional settings, whether it's fear to lose your job, fear to be yourself, fear to be the one to say that I fucking listen to Fat Joe all the way up, not the edited version because that shit fires me. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like, what if you could show up to a professional space and be like, Uzi Vert, little Uzi,
Lil Uzi Vert.
little Uzi
I just
Vert,
want
where
to
he's like, you know that song where he's like,
I just, I just want to rock, rock, rock.
I don't really know what it says,
Eddie, Eddie, rock, rock.
and it probably is taking women's rights back 150,000 years. But
No, it's not. It's not.
I don't
it's
know,
not.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, can you imagine? Like, how
Yeah.
would you see your workplace if you were like, yo,
But
this
but see, but at the
like,
same
when we
time,
hang out personally, she's so dope. But here, I'll be like,
but your friend is a great leader to be able to do that for them. Now,
exactly.
all these other
How many
companies,
how many
do they really want people's authentic selves? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because
I want to hope that that's changing, because if
yeah.
you notice what COVID has done is companies who have stayed in the Stone Age and continue to be dinosaurs.
Oh, they got to come out shake. Yeah, they shaking it up.
They're figuring
They
it out.
shaking
Like,
it up.
even in the Super Bowl, if you watch advertising or marketing that really pops off, is always the one that is urbanly and culturally and like what's happening, what's the tone.
You know what I don't like though? You know what I don't like? We'll keep it real. Every time there's like Hispanic Heritage Month.
Don't concentrate.
No. Every time there's Hispanic Heritage Month, every time there's African American Month, and anything like that, the commercials be real heavy with the African Americans on, you know, buying cars and all this stuff. Or, you know, why not do that? Have y'all seen Bad Bunny numbers? Have y'all seen Bad Bunny numbers? Okay. If y'all don't capitalize on this Hispanic wave that's going on right now, okay? And I ain't even looking at the screen. I'm looking at this mic and I'm leaning into the shit because have y'all seen Bad Bunny numbers?
Actually, he just got
$250 million or something just on the road
as the highest. I'm looking for
grossing. Highest grossing
tour. Bitch, ready? Above
ever.
Elton John,
Ever.
legend. Above, he's number one. Above Ed Sheeran. Above Coldplay. Above Billy Joel. Like, these are iconic white acts. Like, I get chills.
That stay touring.
Stay touring. What's happening? And that's a beautiful, actually, him doing this is a beautiful thing. And if you're in the business space, period, and you're ignoring what's happening, you're going to get left behind. Period. Saying
because the consumer, the Latin consumer, the Latino, Hispanic consumer has spoken. And if you're still saying who is Bad Bunny, you are the one that's going to be left.
2022, I think I went to 6 Bad Bunny concerts. Okay. All sold out. 2 in stadiums. Sold out to the top. And when I tell you, I looked around and all I could see is motherfuckers who were like, if I don't eat anything but ramen for a month, I'm gonna get these.
I'm gonna.
I may pay my rent this month,
but I'm gonna get these tickets.
But I looked up my rights, and legally they can't kick me out for like another 2. But I'm gonna get me these tickets. Bad Bunny tickets were going $500, $600, $700, $800 regular. And when I tell you, as D knows, the floor was packed,
and it was amazing.
What he hasn't done is Code Switch, which is a perfect example of like, there's something to be said about the time, and there's something to be said about people being tired of not being able to be their authentic selves. There's actually an interview where he says he's
not going to do it in English.
One, and two, he takes the most pride in the fact that he has achieved all this without having to do anything in English and without never representing the little tiny island he's from. And that in itself speaks volumes. He's from Puerto Rico. His fan base is global from all over the world. And then the Latino fan base is Mexican, Ecuadorian, Dominican, Cuban. Like, it doesn't even matter.
Spain.
So you're not paying attention to what's happening. Yes, we're talking about code switching, which 20 years ago, which to me, there was even a word for it. It's some racist bullshit. discrimination was the word. Discrimination is what it was that I dealt with starting in my career when we're speaking of professionally. And now it's called code switching, when essentially it's basically a form of discrimination that doesn't allow you to be yourself. Period.
When somebody told me one time, and it was not at the company that I'm at now, but it was at a company that I worked at as corporate, and they said, you can't talk Spanish here. I said, oh, really? I went and looked it up. First of all,
correct.
Hold on. I went and looked it up and gave her the fucking tea. And then I said, and by the way, if I ever need to say something in English about, if I ever need to say anything about you, I will say it in English. Okay? All right. And second, wash your hands when you're in the fucking bathroom, nasty ass. I almost got in trouble for that. But I think because of the fact that she said that, the Spanish, that was me defending, so it was a wash. But, you know, her saying, oh, how do you know that I wash my hands, bitch? Because we go to the bathroom at the same time, and you be in the bathroom long as fuck, and you come out and you don't wash your hands, but then you want to offer brownies, bitch. Stop being nasty.
And then you want to tell me not to speak in Spanish. Why?
Right, but you ain't washing your hands, nasty ass.
You're intimidating.
Nasty ass. Anyways.
Ready? I'm at the Four Seasons last week. I'm at the Four Seasons here in Beverly Hills. They have a little outdoor restaurant. It's me and my two girlfriends. One of them is a huge producer. The other one is, it doesn't matter who they are. Two black women. No one else. It's 6:30. We're gonna go to dinner at 7 in another place. No one else is there. It's an outdoor space. So it's an outdoor space, and then you walk into the restaurant, right? We're talking, kiki, and laughing. When I tell you, we're not even being loud, but we're being our natural, like, conversational self. 1 and 2. There's no one else around. Not that I respectfully would say it would make a difference in the tone of our conversation, but that's to be addressed. This older white man walks in. Do you know what he does? Literally, he walks in to walk into the restaurant. He's not even eating outside. This man goes, yo. First of all, there's so much to unpack in that act alone. First of all, the entitlement that he felt was crazy. Second of all, if we were other people, we would have forced ourselves to code switch and automatically humbled ourselves to the white man who was telling us to hush. And third, you're literally walking into a space without observing the environment, but feeling entitled to tell us to hush. Would you have said that to a group of white women?
Probably not. Probably not.
My point. So thank God I'm with this group of women. We literally laughed at him and started speaking even louder. But I say that to say it even happens in personal spaces. Easily that shit could have gone 2 directions. It could have gone, you know what? We are in a really nice restaurant. We're just having a drink before dinner. We're so sorry to interrupt your night. Blah, 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 blah. But I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're not going to take the fucking traumas and the chains that we've been put onto us in the professional environment. And now where I'm coming here to spend my hard-earned money. So what? We're not worthy to be at the Four Seasons at the nice restaurant that you're coming to? And now you're telling us to hush? And would you have said that to someone? It all transfers in the same way. It's like, how are you choosing to do it? First of all, I mean, it got a little more funner than that, but I won't describe it because you know, this is not.
I could just imagine.
But there is this whole code switching thing is like, I want everyone to think about like, oh fuck, you know what? I actually do that way more often than I thought. I do it like when I go to my daughter's school. Like Sophie goes to a Montessori school. There's a lot of like writers. It's very LA, actors, like famous people, producers, whatever. And I just had her. I just was Thanksgiving coordinator. And the funny thing is, what I will not do is not be who I am authentically in any area of my life. But I feel like the Rocio of 8 years ago, 9 years ago, probably would have.
Mm.
And not to toot my own horn, but it's like the feedback I got from the event or from the moms. It's like, oh my God, you're so cool. It's so great. Like people felt, I could feel like no matter what the race, like they could breathe. Like it was like, oh, this is actually a really cool, dope little setup in this event. And there's like no pretentiousness to it. And I feel
Mm.
like it's because it's like whoever's leading the charge. It's like whether it's this
Right.
event or whether you're CEO of the company, whoever's leading the charge, if you have that energy where you're like, nah, you come as you are, like we doing what we do. Like people were coming in and I was like, grab the garbage bags, blah, 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 yup, hot, dope. Da, da, da. It's like I just don't do it anymore. But I really thought that this was a topic that we should discuss because I know that so many people either do it or are forced to do it because
Mm-hmm.
what 85-90% of work environments are not in a place where you can actually show up as your authentic self.
Absolutely. So fucking crazy. So deep too. Fuck.
So I wanted to touch upon what I did find that why people code switch. And then if any of these things pop out to you, Z, I want you to talk about them. So it's like, why do people code switch? So fear of conforming stereotypes, basically to avoid people being like, oh, all Latinos are like that. All Puerto Ricans are like that. So the thought is that you code switch so that you're almost like defending your own, but really you're becoming unauthentic in the space so that you aren't perceived as what you are.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Then it's like to achieve a specific result, basically to fit in. You just want to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
You just want shit to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't help it. It's how you're programmed, which I feel like,
It happens naturally.
yeah, it's like, I like when you answer the phone and you're like, hi, thanks for calling, whatever, blah, 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 you know. And then the fourth one, it expresses something that can't be said any other way, which you kind of touched upon. You were like, if I got to say something to you, I'm going to say it to you.
I'm gonna tell you nasty ass in English. And I may use some slang. Nasty ass.
Nasty air.
Lávate la mano, coño.
Do you ever feel like in a personal space you've had to code switch?
In a personal space?
Mm-hmm.
I hate when people tell me not to act ratchet or not to be myself. And we had to be like, shh. Or calm down.
You like the man.
Or I'm gonna need you to relax.
It wasn't even that he was.
Did
like,
you not know me?
You guys mind quieting down? This man went.
How old was it? Was he like 80?
Oh, like 85.
Old as hell.
And wealthy as shit. I could just smell the
I'm
money
sure.
coming off of him.
I'm sure.
But the entitlement and in the what?
Oh my god!
I'm like,
I'm so
of all crews, this is not the crew. Like, you got the wrong crew. I mean, and it got a little escalated, but it de-escalated quickly. But do you feel like in a personal environment you've had to code switch?
In a personal environment, I want to say like when it's at home or anything like that. If anybody ever tries to do that, I fucking check them immediately. So I don't think like I ever have to code switch. There has been some instances in the past. I want to say maybe when law enforcement was around, or like if there was something going on, and you know, when I was growing up, you know, you automatically have to put yourself in some sort of professional, you know, so like that you're not the one that's like, because I don't know if you ever noticed, like growing up, the people on TV were the most ratchet ones. They would interview the most ratchet person.
Well, that's part of
in the audience.
Like, people code switch.
So depending on whatever the accident,
validate stereotypes because
right,
unfortunately through the media, brown
exactly
people, Latinas are always seen as big brass, and that still happens on Univision and Telemundo. Like for you to be a newscaster.
Oh yeah, you have to have the whole package. Tetas, butt, everything got to be beautiful.
The culo, the waist. So on the shows, it's like the rigidity, or like it is. So that's the perception that's been portrayed out there for eons. So that's one of the reasons that they're like people code switch, because I don't want to be seen as that.
Right.
Which is fucking sad.
Yeah, so I don't, besides that, like, just growing up and having to, speak to police officers because they're hemming up the whole neighborhood. But other than that, like, usually I don't see myself code switching. The way my personality is, I like to bring, like laughter, and I feel like I have good energy. So usually people they're right with me. They're like, oh, I'm all about it. Like I could be at a store. I'm like, oh. They're like, yeah, but like I said at the top of this, my sister may be a little embarrassed sometimes. Sometimes my daughter, and I'm like, well, I mean, y'all know who I am, so I'm not gonna change or conform. So yeah, I don't think I have that much of an issue. And I do it to myself. Like I said, when I do like talk to my managers and stuff, I try to, at work, I do it for myself now that they're expecting me to do it, because I've been with them long enough that I could probably be myself and they would be okay with it. But I just, there's just something in the brain that clicks,
It's like
and
you're
you're like,
programmed already.
yeah, you're programmed to, yeah. But in my personal life, thank goodness, I haven't had to do that. I think that being my full authentic self usually gets me, in restaurants and stuff like that. So, so, not an issue. So,
do you have any friends that you feel like, damn, why? Now that we're more well versed in the term code switching, do you feel like you have any friends? Yeah.
That code switch?
People you know.
Not people that I would call my friends, because that's like, friends means a lot to me. But
very small,
I mean, people that I know,
small intimate group of people.
Yeah, very small intimate group. But people that I know, yes, and I I don't have an issue saying, why the fuck you do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on? Who's here? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like, and that happens a lot in dating, where they're putting like this fake self out, to get like these first 3 or 4 honeymoon stage. You're not putting your whole self out, and then you start fucking acting crazy and shit. And they're like, oh shit, this is your whole self. Red flag, red flag. But I've seen people be so confident. They'd be so confident and so funny and so this and this and that. And then, a BDE comes in, or a good looking guy or whatever comes in, and this person becomes like all this mush, and oh my God, and they can hardly talk, and the guy's talking to them, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Why are you conforming because of this dude? You was just talking to ugly home, and your personality was on full shine, but he fine, and your personality changed. Why? You should be the same with everybody. You should be the same. Right. You should be the same with everybody. It don't matter how the person look, because at the end of the day, you need to be your full authentic self. Don't be fake. Way,
code switching in dating is the last place you want to do it, because of what you just said. Like,
yeah, but a lot of people do it.
5-month honeymoon period. It's like
that shit. Wait a minute. And then so that máscara becomes that máscara, and máscara means mask, but that mask becomes so heavy because now you're like, fuck, a lie after lie. Like I've seen people, I swear, like I've seen people, and I'm married, but I'm never like not myself, so I could reference a time when there was a group of guys that came in a bar, and automatically these motherfuckers ain't not from the area. You know what I'm saying? You're like, who do you know? So because again, I'm married, not blind, so they came in, and I'm automatically telling my single girls, like, y'all better get on this, like, what's going on, right? But they were all like shook, and I'm like, but why y'all shook? Just be yourself, so yeah, laughing. Come to find out, a couple of the guys were married, and they were married to people that I knew. So it was just like, oh shit, this is cool, whatever. Talking about baseball, blah, blah, blah. But then they come to me and they're like, well, how can you like be so comfortable? You've always had like this comfort. And I was like, because I'm myself. It don't matter who's around. Like, it could be like the most biggest, like I'm gonna tell you right now, the only person that could probably have me like shook would be like a Mark Anthony or like a Jay-Z.
I thought
anybody else?
I swear,
anybody else?
Mark Anthony, I said she's about to say Jay-Z.
I'm about to say Jay-Z. You already know Jay-Z. But it would be like it would be like for a certain amount of, for both. It would be for like a certain amount of minutes, and then I'm gonna be like, oh shit, I'm fucking amazing. Let me show them how amazing I am.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's not even, it would be just like that starstruck, because just because I hold Mark Anthony, no matter what the hell he's done in his dating career, his dating shit or whatever the fuck else, I hold him as one of the highest rated Puerto Ricans, like, he's up there and he could sing his ass off and he's talented and he's done so much for his people, blah 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 blah. Jay-Z the same shit. I've been through so many fucking situations. I've done so many different things, and his music has brought me up through childhood all the way up to now. So, you know what I'm saying? Those are the people that I'll be like, oh shit. But other than that, fuck that. It don't matter. Like, in my personal life, nah. It don't matter who you are. I have this level of comfort where I treat everybody the same from the top down. Like, you could be cleaning toilets.
So do you
you
think
could be whatever.
Coaching has to do with self-confidence?
Self-confidence.
Or
No,
more
I don't
probably
think. Maybe a little bit.
Maybe
A little bit.
environmental.
Maybe more environmental. Maybe more environmental. Because, yeah, some people do it just to do it. Some people, that's all they do. They out here just fucking perpetrating a lie. They out here like, takara code switching for every fucking thing they do in their life. For everything they do in their life. So, I don't know. I mean,
I just feel like, getting back to the name of this podcast, I feel like my mom has gone through so many situations where she had to code switch, and I feel like if she would have had the conversation with me, probably more honestly about what she dealt with in her work environments, which on several occasions led to, which on one big occasion led to her being fired in a public, on a kind of on a public platform. But I was too young to really understand. But I feel like if the conversation would have been had about the fact that as a Latina, you need to, wear different hats and be sharper and stronger and, sometimes present yourself in a different way, I think I would have been more prepared. Like, I was really traumatized professionally after Sean John for a little while. Like, probably for a good 5-6 years, I dealt with the commentary about hoops, about my lips. I'll never forget one day I wore my hair blow dried. And I had this comment made to me younger by a Latina boss when I was in college. But then I had my hair blow dried, and the white man who was the CEO was like, "Oh wow, you should blow dry. You should straighten your hair more often. It's so much more. He said it's not so intimidating." And I was like 25, 26. I couldn't really understand that that's a form of discrimination. 120%.
mm-hmm.
And I feel like if I would have had more of a conversation, now I have these conversations with friends and really understand that you're not alone in any of this. But I feel like it could have been, you could have been prepared for the real world if these conversations are had. It's like, it's just the truth of the matter is, not only as women, but as brown women, we go into all spaces and environments with carrying different weight. So there's something to be said about knowing that the shit exists, and that when it exists, you're not alone in it. And a lot of times it's not personal. It comes from a place of intimidation and ignorance. And really the unknown always leads people to be scared and ignorant.
Absolutely.
But I feel like we can fucking unpack this shit for hours. Nonetheless, any closing words, Diana? What would you like to tell
closing words?
Cositas family?
I would tell them to just take a look at yourself when you're doing that code switching. Why are you doing it? Take note as to why you're doing the code switching, for whom this code switching is happening, especially if it's in your personal life. Because if you can't be your authentic self around the people that are in your space, then I don't know. They shouldn't be. I mean, yeah, you should be able to be your total authentic self, whether it's silly, goofy, if you're the opposite, if you're serious and you're acting goofy to make sure you keep friends, then shit, if you want to be serious and play Dungeons and Dragons, do your thing. Shit, find yourself some Dungeons and Dragon people. Like, you know, I find that a lot of people are always just trying to, you know, keep friends or associates, you know, or smoke the weed and drink the Henny, you know what I'm saying? And they don't really want to, but they feel like because I'm gonna tell you, when I stopped smoking weed a long time ago, I lost a lot of friends. So that made me just sit and think like, okay, I was probably the one that was bringing the weed, and okay, these motherfuckers ain't shit. But so yeah, just try to take note and see why you're doing the code switching. I know that sometimes code switching is a form of survival, and that you have to do it. And you know, if you have to be like, yes, officer, your hands are out, yes, officer, yeah, that's survival right there. So if you got a code switch to make sure you stay alive, you got to do it. But in your personal life, like around your friends, your family, if you feel like why am I doing this? Like, take note of that. And why? Like, why? Just why are you doing it? Then I don't feel you have to. If you're an amazing human and you're out here doing what you're supposed to be doing, find you some people that accept you for you. So that would be my closing thought.
I love it.
Fuck everybody.
We'd love to hear, as always, your comments and your stories on code switching or environments you've been in or are currently in. And let's talk about it. Code switching is some shit. And by the way, it's just another word for fucked up discrimination.
Rakata.
And my new prop today.
The tea. ¿Qué dice el vaso? Jefa. Make jefa moves. Okay, got it. Diablo.
Just saying. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Gracias for listening to Cositas Mommy Never Told Me. We hope you loved this episode. Make sure you subscribe, follow, and share Cositas Mommy Never Told Me on all your social channels. Todas las redes sociales. And don't forget, if you want in on the real tea and see all of our reactions to the craziness, watch this episode on YouTube. ¡Qué bochinche!